New COVID-19 cases in the country reached another all-time high yesterday, bringing the total number of active cases past the 100,000 mark. Health experts are urging LGUs to comply with the Vaccination Prioritization Order, even for a quick substitution list. Otherwise, they say the repercussions could be fatal. The IATF heeded the call of certain church leaders to allow religious gatherings in time for the Holy Week, but only at limited capacity. President Duterte signs into law the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises or CREATE Act, but not without vetoing several provisions of the measure. And the continued blockage of the Suez Canal has forced operators to reroute their ships. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know to jumpstart your weekend. I'm Riza Diaz. The country's new COVID-19 cases reach another all-time high at 9,838. This brings the total caseload to over 702,000, of which around 109,000 are still active cases. Now, despite the record-breaking new and active infections, the Philippine Medical Association is still not calling out for a timeout. Instead, PMA President Dr. Benito Atienza said that the public should be the ones taking a timeout amid the current surge in cases.
Actually, hindi naman po kami humingi ng timeout kasi pag nag-timeout po ang mga doktor, wala nang tatao doon sa ospital. Baliktad po ang dapat mag-timeout yung mga tao. Dapat nasanay na yung mga tao. Makinig naman kasi parang ang baliktad ang napagod yung mga tao. Kaya nung binigyan tayo ng leave, makapag-travel, talaga namang ang sitwasyon ngayon dapat walang sisihan. Walang tayong sosolve nitong problemang ito. Napakasimple. Ang kalaban din natin nakikita, di ba? Pero dapat tayo ay protektado.
Pateros is among the localities seeing a spike in COVID-19 cases. Speaking to 1PH sa Totoo Lang, Pateros Mayor Miguel Ponce III said cases surged in the municipality in less than a month. They have now a total of 225 active cases and recorded 70 new infections in just 2 days. Mayor Ponce adds that the lack of isolation facility remains the biggest challenge for Pateros.
Hindi naman yung challenge namin dito ay yung lack of isolation facility. Kasi marami kaming isolation facility before 124, Kaya lang yung isang major isolation facility namin ay na-convert na ito dahil nag-anda na nga tayo for vaccination.
Mayor Ponce adds that they have started vaccinating senior citizens in Pateros as they have finished inoculating majority of their health workers. But the local executive assured that they are strictly following the vaccine priority list in their immunization program.
Ingat po tayo dito. Kahit po sino makiusap sa atin, hindi ko napayagan. Maski po yung mga empleyado natin ng pamahalaan na kinukonsider namin frontliners na hindi pa po nababawanan. Dahil gusto po natin sundin yung priority list.
Meanwhile, in other localities, some people are still caught jumping the vaccination line and are even painfully brazen about it. Just how severe is this problem and what are the possible repercussions? Jess De Los Santos tells us in this report.
There are some 1.7 million health workers in the Philippines, but COVID-19 shots on stock are not enough to inoculate them all. That's why reports of officials jumping the vaccination line dismay the Interior Department.
Base sa mga report ko ngayong gabi, kaya napapakamot na ako kaysa mainis, wala nang pigil. Puro kapitan naririnig ko, puro mayor, puro konsyal, vice mayor nagpapaturo. Parang wala nang konsensya itong mga taong ito.
Under the government's prioritization framework, health workers are tagged as A1 or first in line. Categorized as A2 are 8 million senior citizens. Those with comorbidities and health risks fall under A3. Only then will local officials follow in the A4 group. Medical frontliners have yet to finish their turn for COVID-19 jabs. And yet, mayors, barangay captains, councilors and their families, and even actor Mark Anthony Fernandez are cutting the queue.
Feeling ko lang at sanay kasi ako makarinig ng mukha ng sinungaling. Mukhang pang ginamit yung substitution list na sasabihin nila, excuse, hindi dumating yung HCW, nakalista doon mga politiko.
The World Health Organization has repeatedly reminded the Philippine government to follow the priority list. The Health Department has said that breaches may jeopardize the country's COVAX supply.
Pag biglang nakita nila, hindi naman kayo sumusunod mga Pilipino. Binibigay nyo naman sa artista at saka sa mayor. Mahihirap na bansa sa Africa. Binabantayan tayo. They're monitoring us on how we are implementing this.
Doses from the COVAX facility will cover 20% of the Philippines' population. If the agreement is scrapped, these doses will be allocated to other nations. The Interior Department has ordered the errant local officials to explain their actions.
Tinanong ako nung Lunes, muntik talaga ako madulas. Sa inyo ko lang sasabihin ito. Ang nasa isip kong sasabihin sa media sana, bakit? Dahil ba dating addict siya?
If found guilty of violating prioritization protocols, they may face suspension. But the bigger issue remains. Will the WHO also suspend its provision of our much-needed vaccine supply? Jess De Los Santos, We Are One News.
Meanwhile, NITAG member Dr. Maria Consorcia Lim Quizon insists we must stick to the priority list in COVID-19 vaccinations. In an interview with the chiefs, Dr. Lim Quizon clarifies that if the first priority was not able to take the vaccine, the rule is that the second priority must take their place and not just anyone the mayor chooses to vaccinate.
We have a priority list, and it's A1, A2, A3, A4, it's there. So that strictly speaking, when you say substitute, ibig sabihin hindi na gamit para doon sa kung sino yung priority first, then there is the list and so on down the line. And so, strictly speaking, I'm going to say, if you say substitution list, then the substitute will be the next in line. Not any Tom, Dick, and Harry, I guess, na hinatak mo lang dyan sa kalye. At this point, we don't have enough.
Now, as to some people's defense that allowing substitution prevents vaccines from going to waste, Dr. Lim Quizon says there should be no excuses or excess at all. Speaking to The Big Story, she maintained that the vaccine stock on hand is not even enough for all healthcare workers. This means there is also or always going to be someone next in line on the priority list.
Even in this group of health workers, there are subgroups of prioritization. For example, the number one priority are the COVID referral hospitals. Then we have tertiary hospitals, other government hospitals, private institutions, and so on down the line. So that even if it's sobra, let's say, in one particular institute, may kasunod pa yun. So it's not as if it's really going to waste.
And we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. A few days before Holy Week, the IATF has finally allowed churches to hold once-a-day religious gatherings at a 10% maximum capacity. Meanwhile, outdoor gatherings remain prohibited. Marlene Alcaide with the details.
Manila Cathedral is now preparing for the Holy Week. Religious gatherings will push through in the NCR Plus bubble after all, although at limited capacity. In the IATF's latest resolution, churches may hold physical masses or worship services once a day from April 1 to 4. Only 10% capacity is allowed. Churches are encouraged to have a reservation system. Mass gatherings even outside the church are still prohibited. Recorded music is urged to avoid live singing during Mass.
Inatasan ng local barangay units at local units ng PNP na ipatupad ang nasabing mga protocols.
The CBCP welcomes the development. It assures observance of the new protocols.
There will be no opening of churches for Visita Iglesia, and then there will be no passion. So these are activities that attract people.
Over in Quiapo Church, only 100 church-goers are allowed inside the Minore Basilica of the Black Nazarene per Mass. Officials are now discussing ways to implement online reservation for Holy Week Masses. They will also prohibit kissing or touching the crucifix.
Kami mga pari na lang yung uhugasan na paa. Medyo may mga adjustment lang sa mga liturgical celebration ng simbahan.
For Palaspas blessing, the church says this may be done beyond Palm Sunday to avoid an influx of devotees. Manila Police will enforce the Holy Week restrictions.
Umuwi na muna kayo. Umuwi na muna kayo. Kung pwede naman, pinapayagan namin kayong makapasok dyan. Wala tayong magiging usapan. So sa ngayon, ang guidance is hindi po pwede yung mga ganitong pagtitipon. Sumunod tayo. Pagpasensyahan nyo muna. Bumalik kayo pag pwede na.
Plaza Miranda has also been closed to avoid churchgoers from flocking outside. The public is still encouraged to join church activities online for the time being. For News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
Now here are other stories we're watching across the nation. Cagayan Governor Manuel Mamba supports placing the province under general community quarantine from modified GCQ. This comes after the Interior Department recommended placing Region 2, except Batanes, under GCQ due to rising COVID-19 cases. Mamba said that the region should not go against the DILG's recommendation as cases continue to surge in Cagayan, particularly in Tuguegarao City. He adds that a stricter quarantine classification will help bring down transmission, which mostly happens in workplaces. President Duterte has signed the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises or CREATE Act, but he vetoed no less than 9 provisions in the measure. The law aims to cut corporate income taxes and streamline fiscal incentives, especially for MSMEs. The measure also works to boost the importation of COVID-19 vaccines by exempting medicine importation from VAT and other import duties. The law also exempts from VAT all medications to be used against COVID-19, including raw materials directly necessary for drug preparation, as well as medicines for diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol control, and cancer, among others. But the president vetoed some provisions, including one that provides a VAT exemption threshold for socialized and low-cost housing. The same goes for 90-day provision for the processing of general tax funds and redundant incentives for domestic enterprises, and the presidential powers to exempt any promotion agency from the coverage of the law. President Duterte is also pushing for higher pork imports and lower tariff rates. That's according to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, who says that the president wants to increase the minimum access volume of pork to augment supply and stabilize increasing prices. This, along with other measures like the current price cap on pork and local importation, is in line with goals to bring pork prices down. Now, with still no end in sight to the blockage of the Suez Canal, many ships are beginning to divert their course to the longer voyage around the Cape of Good Hope. Bloomberg's Daddy Berger reports.
There's a traffic jam of epic proportion in the Suez Canal. The Ever Given, the ship that's stuck there, is causing a massive backlog, and that's problematic. 12% of global trade goes through this route. Let me show you just how bad that backup really is, though. If we look at satellite imagery, you can see that a week ago, there were only about 50 ships waiting to cross. Those are all those little blue dots there. Fast forward to today, and 300 vessels are waiting, carrying billions of dollars worth of oil and consumer goods. The Suez Canal is a critical link between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans and is also the fastest link between the Indian and Atlantic. All that waiting around, though, is a costly delay, so to avoid that, ships are being diverted. Here you see two ships taking off from the Americas, starting to head towards the Mediterranean, but then doing a sharp right turn in order to go around the coast of Africa. This is a journey that will take twice as long, all to avoid that ship stuck in the middle of the Suez Canal.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 10 in the morning as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.